Over the last century, two companies waged a billion-dollar war of perception that pulled in everyone from rival nuclear superpowers to global pop megastars. It was a rivalry that eventually came down to two unmarked glasses sweating on a table. To understand why a fight over flavored sugar water escalated to that level, we have to look at Coca-Cola's late 19th century strategy. They bypassed the physical taste buds entirely, focusing instead on embedding their product into the core of American cultural identity. The company hired prominent artists like Norman Rockwell to produce artwork that explicitly aligned the beverage with wholesome American ideals. They saturated the country with this imagery. Every diner, gas station, and general store displayed branding that linked the drink to nostalgia and tradition. By the early 20th century, Coca-Cola had achieved something unusual for a beverage company. They had successfully transformed a sugary liquid into a bottled concept of American identity. When World War II began, Coca-Cola turned that identity into a global tactical deployment. The company vowed that any American in uniform could get a Coke for 5 cents, shipping portable soda fountains directly to the front lines as a literal taste of home. This reached well beyond U.S. troops. The beverage quickly spread across international war theaters, becoming a shared symbol of victory among Allied forces. Coke went to extreme lengths for this global influence. When Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov developed a taste for the drink, Joseph Stalin viewed the American product as a symbol of imperialism. So Coca-Cola developed White Coke, a clear version of the drink with a red star on the cap, allowing Zhukov to consume it without appearing suspicious. Zhukov was a high-ranking war hero. A foreign soda successfully infiltrating the Soviet high command illustrates the sheer influence the brand had acquired. This is the essence of Coca-Colanization. By tying the drink to freedom and victory, Coke wasn't just selling a refreshment, they were building a global emotional attachment that was often more powerful than the product itself. Meanwhile, rival Pepsi Cola was struggling. After 2 bankruptcies, their executives realized they could never defeat Coca-Cola on the battlefield of tradition and nostalgia. So they pivoted. Pepsi targeted the youth demographic by aligning with pop culture and securing massive megastar endorsements, positioning themselves as the choice of a new generation. Then they launched their ultimate weapon, the Pepsi Challenge. This nationwide blind taste test was designed to prove that, in a head-to-head comparison, people physically preferred the sweeter taste of Pepsi. This chart shows the result of that offensive. Coke's post-war market share, which once sat at a dominant 60%, dropped to just 24% by 1983. Coca-Cola panicked. In their rush to fix the problem, they committed a significant error in their market research. They ignored the 80-20 rule. Instead of weighting the opinions of the heavy, loyal buyers who made up the majority of their sales, they gave every survey respondent equal importance. The taste tests told them to make a sweeter drink, but by prioritizing objective physical metrics over the subjective loyalty of their core customers, the company set the stage for a self-inflicted disaster. In April 1985, the company launched New Coke. Management was confident that this sweeter formula would win back the market share they had lost to Pepsi. Executives publicly celebrated the redesigned formula, completely oblivious to the public reaction brewing outside their headquarters. The cultural meltdown was immediate. In the American South, where Coca-Cola was part of regional identity, consumers treated the change like a surrender. The reaction was unprecedented. The company's hotline saw a massive jump in complaints, while grassroots protests erupted across the country. A retiree named Gay Mullins formed the Old Cola Drinkers of America and filed a class action lawsuit to force the company to return to the original formula. The outrage even crossed geopolitical lines. Global political figures began using the corporate failure as anti-capitalist propaganda. Even Fidel Castro chimed in. A longtime Coke drinker, he publicly called the new formula a sign of capitalist decadence, illustrating the sheer global reach of the backlash. The failure came down to a psychological principle known as "I use this, this is me." Consumers identified themselves so closely with the product that altering the formula felt like an attack on their own identity. After just 77 days, Coca-Cola surrendered and announced the return of the original formula. Branded as Coca-Cola Classic, this return to tradition instantly saved the company. sales skyrocketed, quickly outpacing both new Coke and Pepsi. Decades later, science finally explained why the branding outperformed the taste. In 2004, researchers at Baylor College of Medicine conducted a study using fMRI scans to map the cola wars inside the human brain. These scans map the brain's response to flavor. In blind taste tests, the ventral putamen activated more for Pepsi. On the tongue, Pepsi wins. But when subjects knew they were drinking Coke beforehand, their memory and emotional centers lit up, entirely overriding their physical taste buds. Coca-Cola survived its blender because a century of association had physically rewired consumer brains. People were wired to prefer the story of the brand over the actual flavor of the liquid. Coming out of the 1980s, Coca-Cola realized its branding was its true product. They remained a beverage purist, leaning heavily into their iconic identity while expanding into zero-sugar alternatives. Pepsi, meanwhile, realized they could never fully dethrone the emotional attachment consumers had to Coke. To grow, they had to change the rules of engagement. Pepsi pursued massive diversification. They built a $40 billion snack and food business, effectively insulating themselves from the volatility of the beverage wars. This is the final takeaway of the cola wars. A superior product might win a blind taste test, but as Coca-Cola proved, a brand that earns a place in a consumer's identity can win the world.